Right, this is the gearbox now open. As you can see, all the gears are out, piston, everything, all that's out. Excuse me. The one thing that they're telling you to do in the manual, which is over here, as you can see in that picture, just before you put the board in, you need to take out the mechanical safety and the stock cut-off lever. So this is your cut-off lever. Obviously that's held in with a screw. And this bit that's here, it'll have a spring in it. This is your mechanical safety. This needs to come out as well. So now all I need to do is install the cut-off lever that comes with the MOSFET. You install that here. I've already gone ahead and taken selector plate off because there's a new one that comes with it. So I'll show you that when that's done. Right, so the cut-off lever is now installed. Wants to be obviously as tight as you can get it without it hindering any movement. So this wants to just move nice and freely. The next step will be mounting the, I think it's called the ECU board or something like that. Basically the trigger box that goes here. Okay, one thing that you should keep in mind, I'll just get this to focus a little bit, is when you're installing it, the back of the plate actually has to go behind here. So you sort of feed it in, bottom end first, then through the top, and make sure the cut-off lever is down. So it's nice and flush. Then, as you can see here, as the cut-off lever comes up, actuates on that unit there. Incidentally, when you put this into test mode, unlike me who was trying to press the cut-off lever down, it has to go up towards the top. That's just a little thing to remember if you're going into test mode. Okay, trigger board's in, so now I'm just going to quickly show you what basically happens when the trigger's on. Just get this to focus. Focus. Okay. Basically what happens is there is a little micro switch on this side, and that just presses. So, luckily, as you can see, it's the shape of the trigger at the top, because I actually thought it was going to catch on this, but it doesn't. It just sits there nicely and presses. One thing to bear in mind as well, or another thing, is the ACU doesn't come with any fittings, as in screws. You have to use the originals, so when you take out the old stuff, make sure you keep hold of the two little screws, and that will allow you to mount it. Okay, small little snag I've found so far. Just rerouted all my wires. When it's the first time you're doing it, it's quite easy because you can bend them into shape and they will hold. As you can see, you don't really protrude up above, which is fantastic. The only snag I found is, if you look here, where this post comes up, it just catches that there. And also, I take off the board carefully, you'll see it doesn't quite go flush inside there. See if I can get that to focus a little bit. Probably not. There's a little post there that just seems to be stopping the bottom board from being flush. I didn't quite notice that earlier because then again I wasn't looking for it. It's only when I actually closed the two gearbox halves together just to see how the wires was routed and make sure everything was alright, I noticed that this section here and here wasn't closing properly, and after looking I saw it. So I'm probably going to have to Dremel a little bit out, maybe off this top reinforcement here or just here, just to try and make the bottom bit sit flush, and then the top one can go in and sit flush as well. So I'll have a go and come back to you with how I've done it. Okay, worked out. Well, there is two things that are foul in this trigger board, and the first thing is this post here. It is foul at the top piece, so as you can see I've already started to grind it off. I just need to do a little bit more. Excuse me. The other thing is this little bit here. Not all gearboxes have it. This is the G&P gearbox. This does has it, and it screws out basically. It's just a flat-headed screw basically. But once that is removed, it's a little bit tight still, especially at the top here, but it sits in, and as you can see how close it is, that hole to the board, that's what was causing the fouling. So we'll go in this way. Like I say, all I need to do now is just grind off a little bit more on this bottom side, just to allow the top piece to sit on snugly, and it doesn't twist it. It will go on, but it just puts ever so slight twist, and I'm just worried because there's only 6 pins, and they're quite narrow, and I don't want them bending and breaking. So just take this off and it'll just sit nicely. So I'll come back after it's done. Okay, so it's finally in. It still does touch this top bit up here, but it's sat in there enough now that it's not twisted or at an angle, so I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, if you really wanted to, just chop the whole thing off, just chop this post off, or take it down a few millimeters just so it doesn't touch it at all. But this does just rest up against it, so it might give it a bit of stability. While you're in this state, what you could do is put it into test mode. What you need to do is hook a motor up to your motor connectors. You can do it as is on here. Plug a battery in, and within 3 seconds, use different hand, within 3 seconds of plugging the battery in, you need to lift up that. You don't actually, oh no, you do need both bits together. You just basically do that, and then press that once within 3 seconds of connecting the battery. You'll hear it beep 3 times. If it doesn't hear it beep 3 times, then there is a problem and you need to send it back. If it does beep 3 times, you're in test mode. Then you can start going through all the various tests, and you will find the tests on the back of the manual, the instruction booklet that comes with it. Just the one thing I wanted to show you as I'm starting to re-grease everything and all that kind of stuff. There's the nozzle. Okay, now I bought this gun second hand. The bloke who bought it off didn't really know anything about it, didn't know what make it was or anything like that. I've since found out it's actually a G&P, which I'm very pleased about because it was always the one I wanted to buy, and I managed to get it for a really good price. Now this is your loading nozzle, and that's what I used to clean it with, and that's just on the inside. Okay, I used a bit of paper towel to clean the outside. That's what came out the inside of the loading nozzle. So it really goes to show that you do need to get into these little components and give them a really good clean. Alright, that's not necessarily going to affect performance massively, but you mean if that's pushing dirt onto BBs and stuff like that, that's where you can get inconsistencies from. So it's worth just giving it a quick, that's just like a, grab the right one. That's a make-up cotton bud. I bought these by accident, but they have come in handy for doing stuff with this. So just one of them, stick it inside, stick it in, bit of a wiggle as she says, and you can see how much dirt and grime gets inside these. So well worth giving them a quick clean. Okay, so this is basically just before I put the main piston spring in and actually close it up. I just want to show you roughly what it should look like. So you got your 3 main gears, tappet plate, obviously spring, cylinder, piston head, nozzle, all your usual components. Then there's your trigger board or your MOSFET. If I find my trigger, this should just sit nicely above the wires like so, and actuate the micro switch which is inside there. Should be just enough room for it to sit in there without fouling the cables. So the wires I've got set up, as you can see, they're all sat nicely in there. They don't seem to pop out, which is, I always have trouble with that. But these, because they're brand new, you can actually get that quite far inside before they touch a cable or wire. So yeah, and I wired it to Dean's. So yeah, let's stick the spring in, wire it back up, put it back in the body, and see how we go. One thing I forgot to mention, you notice the lack of anti-reversal latch. Like I say, you take that out, you don't need to put it back in. Same with the mechanical safety, which will normally sit just here by the trigger. So none of that needs to go back in. So yeah, get the trigger in, let's get the spring in, let's give it a test. Okay, found a small little snag while I was putting the trigger back in here. Obviously the trigger comes with a spring. Now normally this spring has a hooked end. Well, this one in particular had a hooked end that stuck down inside the gearbox. So as I was trying to put it in here, it was fouling the trigger board itself. So what I'm going to have to do is, well, I've already bent it straight. I'm going to try this. Now hopefully it will fit in here without me having to do anything else. It will just fit nicely inside. If it's not, then what I'll have to do is just chop a little bit off and put it back in. Other than that, that should be all right. Okay, got it in all right. In the end, I had to chop down a few mil because inside here, I can get it to focus, which it probably won't. But just inside there, basically, just inside this bit here, there is the connections between the top board and the bottom board. They stick up, so the spring obviously stuck out to about here, which hit them. So what I had to do is cut off a good, so I don't know, 7 or 8 mil. Just left enough so it sat inside and still able to still able to actuate it, and it springs back all right. Touches the micro switch, which is there. So yeah, that really should be the last problem I run into, I hope. When you are putting the gearbox back together, just remember, it does say in the manual, but I thought I'd show you as well, just remember to keep an eye on that hole. You see how there's a little bit of something poking in there? That is actually one of your wires, so you just want to be careful of that when you put, that is the main, well, that is one of the pins that goes through the body, through the gearbox and out the other side. So when you're actually back in the body and you're putting that last pin in, just be aware of that. Don't just, you know, if it's come up against resistance, don't just hammer it through. It could be catching on that wire. You could split the wire or damage it in some way, and then it would be, you know, if you expose it, could be arcing against it and basically just short your gun out and ruin the MOSFET. So just be careful of that. Okay, small problem. Okay, running an 11.1 LiPo, only 1400 milliamp. Got the gun set up. Okay, looking through the troubleshoot guide, and I know what's causing it. Now, it's a stock G&P gun inside. It's got a G&P M16A2 motor inside as well, inside here. Now, in the instruction manual, it does say remove the anti-reversal latch. And unfortunately, just the M120 motor just isn't powerful enough to stop it from, see how it's rolling back? It's just not powerful enough. It's great when it's got a great rate of fire. Trigger response is brilliant. But unfortunately, it's got this. So there's two options. You can get an upgraded motor, set you back, I don't know, £30–40, or you can reinstall the anti-reversal latch. Well, you've already got it. The motor, it is alright, you know, it's a decent enough motor, it's just not quite strong enough to stop the gears from rolling back. So I think the only thing to do is reinstall the anti-reversal latch, and that will be it basically. Well, the pistol grip is quite warm already. It is vented, so it should be okay. So yeah, that's the option I'm going to run with. Maybe in future I might change it, but to be honest, put the anti-reversal latch back in. That will stop that. And yeah, that should be it. It's good to go. Now, one of the things that I when I was testing this, it wouldn't fire. I connected the battery. In fact, I'll show you if I can. No, wait. Actually, 2 seconds. No, it's too difficult on this way. But basically, once you connect a battery, as long as you don't touch anything, after 3 seconds it will beep. Okay, so it beeped. Excellent. Flicked it to semi, went to test fire, and I got 3 sharp bleep, 2 or 3 sharp beeps. Nothing happened. No gears rotated or anything. What that was is the motor inside the pistol grip was pressed too high up. There was too much tension on it, and that's what stopped it firing. Same with the gears. If your gears aren't shimmed properly and there's too much friction in your gears, it won't fire. So all I had to do, I just took it out. Basically what it is the black cable that comes from the trigger unit that comes down into the pistol grip. It's quite long. You've got sort of, I don't know, I'd stick it out to about here, say. So you've got quite a lot there, so I've had to sort of just bend it a couple of times to get it to sit in there so it weren't pressing down on the motor. And now it's fine, like you see, it's firing. It still needs tweaking, but obviously I need to take it out again, so. But yeah, so if you haven't got a decent motor, leave the anti-reversal latch in. If you have got a good motor, then you can take it out.